Hello, my amazing viewers, and welcome to another episode of 21st Generation, where youth issues matter the most, with your host, Dekala Itai. So, giving you another exclusive interview here on 21st Generation, we have a young woman all the way from Botswana, and she's only 22, but is doing amazing things internationally, regionally, even in her own country. Here in studio on 21st Generation, we have Miss Gogontlejang Phaladi. Welcome to 21st Generation.
Thank you very much for having me.
Did I pronounce your name right?
Almost, not too bad, but you're getting there.
So how do you actually pronounce your name?
Gogontlejang.
Gogontlejang.
Yes.
It's a beautiful name. What does that mean?
It means very beautiful, or how beautiful it is to see God's blessings.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the viewers watching are saying this is definitely God's blessing that we got to have her in Malawi and having her on 21st Generation as well. So it's so great to have Gogontlejang in studio today. Is it okay if I can call you Gigi?
Yes, Gigi.
We hear that a lot of people call you Gigi, so it's okay that 21st Generation can say that as well.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay,
Sure.
great. So, Gigi, we hear that you were in Malawi this past week, and there had been a lot of things happening, and you're doing a lot of work with the Partnership of Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health, also known as PMNCH. Tell us a bit more about what that is all about, because you definitely got the attention of Your Excellency, the President of Malawi at this meeting, and would love to know more about it.
Yes. So yes, I was. I'm still here in Malawi. But we had the PMNCH Partnership for Maternal, Newborn, and Child Health, which is a global body that brings in different stakeholders from all over the world in different spheres, working for healthcare. Focus SDGs, but broadly on the Sustainable Development Agenda, and is focused on delivering better healthcare, information, services, commodities all over the world for women, children, as well as adolescents. So it brings in different stakeholders such as the private sector, donors and foundations, member states. It brings in NGO community, healthcare professionals, the academia, and then it has a constituency that is known as the Adolescent and Youth Constituency, which I chair. And basically through this constituency is to ensure that we don't just mainstream youth and adolescent health issues into all the broader work of the constituency, or the PMNCH rather, but we have a standalone voice of young people and adolescents who are having a seat at the table, and are able to decide on what is important, what are the priorities, are able to even make sure that all the conversations that we're having, whether it's about funding for healthcare, whether it's about negotiating for political will and commitment, whether it's making investment cases, it comes out very strongly what are the needs of adolescents, sort of emphasizing that notion that nothing for us without us.
And I noticed usually the most common phrase whenever we're talking about youth issues, nothing for us without us. And I love the way this partnership works. So you find that all the different constituencies, the private sector, the NGO, and so forth, they basically come together on a round table, and they're basically discussing on these issues and how to advance these issues, and also investing in them as well. So this is incredible.
Yes, it's incredible, and it's also effective because this is a partnership that happens at the global level, right? It's hosted by the WHO Geneva office, but one of the most important things that we want to replicate the same principle of partnership at country and regional level, because we have a lot of development partners working in different countries, low to middle income countries, doing a lot of development work, whether it's in health, education, human rights, in different spheres, but there's lack of proper coordination, working together.
And a lot of people don't really come together. You find that, if it's Ministry of Education, they're working on their own programs. Ministry of Health working
no
on their own
complementarity.
Private sector doesn't really always come in also in these developmental agenda on a setup like the committee, and actually advancing these issues together. The issues we usually have in Malawi is, private sector come in maybe to do once-off donations on certain projects that they probably have in the corporate social responsibility, but never a working committee like the partnership does. So it's really good.
So
and this is a good way also to strengthen the coordination in countries.
Exactly.
So they're working in different countries?
Yes, no, the partnership itself, it's only based as a secretariat, so it's not an implementing body. It's just a secretariat, and it's coordinating at the highest level. So the partnership has over 1,000 members from all of these constituencies. So our work as the partnership is not reflected in PMNCH necessarily doing the work on the ground, but the partners who are members of the partnership doing the work. So maybe you have members such as World Vision or Save the Children, or you have your own organization, Her Liberty in Malawi. So they do the work on the ground with the support of the partnership. So we don't necessarily implement as the partnership because it's a secretariat, but through the members of the partnership, the UN agencies, they're doing the work on the ground. So that's how it
So you work with the partners in country,
so,
getting them to come together, different sectors,
Exactly.
and to advance issues affecting maternal and newborn child health and adolescent
and
health.
sexual reproductive health as well.
Great.
Yes.
No, this is amazing. So we heard about something called advocating for change for adolescents. So this was really fascinating. We've been hearing a lot of young people talking about this. We heard there was also just a meeting with different young people, youth-led organizations that came together last week from all over Malawi to talk about this. Tell us more about it.
Yes. So as I already said that the most aligned, the partnership PMNCH works with different UN agencies, particularly the H6, because they work with health and adolescents, young people.
So when you
women
say
and all of
H6,
them.
that is composed of
The H6 are different UN agencies such as UNICEF, UNAIDS, UNFPA, WHO, the ones that particularly work on more aligned to women, children, adolescent health. So they just group them into the H6. But yes, they work in the same field of work. So now, WHO came up with a framework. It's called the AHA framework, AHA, and it stands for Accelerated Actions for Health Among Adolescents. And the AHA is just a theme to say, aha, we've figured it out,
So you're having that aha moment.
Exactly.
And we need to do something about this moment.
So the AHA framework is a technical guidance tool for member states on how to invest in adolescent child as well as women's health issues in countries. So it gives them guidance on how to identify, do situational analysis, how to do prioritization, alignment, all of these things. It gives them case studies from all over the world. So now since that's a technical guidance for member states, as a Adolescent and Youth Constituency of the PMNCH, we thought it would be good to have something that complements the AHA, but this is now a tool for youth-led organizations to use. So this is why we came with Advocating for Change for Adolescent Health, which is a manual basically for youth-led organizations on how to go about advocacy initiatives in their countries. And this is broadly, whether it's for human rights, for sexual reproductive health and rights, for health or anyhow, but it's a technical guidance. It has a roadmap on 5 different steps that you take from advocating to influencing policy change in your country, engaging with your leaders, and look at the outcomes.
Really
and it
good.
even fosters a system where youth-led organizations do not work in silos. They come
bringing
together.
them to come together. Because the force is always stronger when you come together.
Exactly.
And I think this is something that could really support, the youth-led organizations in terms of how to articulate the issues.
Exactly.
Because a lot of young people, they can see the issues in there, but then how do you now come together? How do you assess these issues? How do you now, engage with the different partners or the government on the issues and hold them accountable? So this is basically a guide to assist them on how to do that.
Exactly.
Wow.
Because our biggest power as young people is our demographic weight. We're missing in decision-making spaces. We're missing in a lot of positions of power, authority, and influence. We're left on the periphery. So the biggest power that we have is our demographic weight. So it's important for us to really not be outnumbered, but to be really organized effectively so that we use our numbers to make our demands heard.
Well said.
Yeah.
Why do you think young people are missing in these decision-making spaces?
The first thing is that we come from very gerontocratic society. It's in our African culture where a child is not somebody who is known to be having an opinion. A child does not speak when elders are speaking. A child is somebody whom elders make a decision for. And it's not just child in the sense of saying a minor and under 18. As long as there's somebody who's older than me, even if I'm a 30-year-old professional, professional
Yeah.
working in a field where most people are like in their 50s, 60s, are always be considered a child. So there's that, it's very systematic in our African society, and somehow we manage to move it into the professional setting as well, where as long as you're young, you're perceived to be of less regard or
So it's
experience.
that culture.
It's very
kind of
gerontocratic.
ingrained. And
Exactly.
those are some of the things we kind of need to break.
Yeah. No, we need to work on that.
Yeah.
And I think to work on it, it's definitely going to be a process. It's not an event. And I think one of the things that we need to do is that the youth movement needs to come out very strongly, very organized, effectively, because you find that as young people, we're also very fragmented. When you're fragmented, it's very difficult for you to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
So the youth movements need to come together and work together in complementarity. Whether you're working in environment, human rights, let us see how we make our demands heard. The second thing is that we need to also know that we can advocate and negotiate for power sharing for young people to be in decision making, but the surest way for you to be in decision making position is through the elective process. So how do young people participate in electoral processes beyond being voters or spectators at rallies and stuff like that? Because we have a lot of young people who don't vote at all because they think that vote does not matter, but voting is a decision that you make, and if you don't make that decision, somebody else makes it for you. So how do we address the challenge of voter apathy in our country so that our young people vote for other young people who stand for positions?
Ensure that they're actually part of the decision making.
And how do we capacitate young people to be able to stand for positions? And capacity is not just in empowerment workshops, financial capacity, because the biggest difference between a young person maybe like you who may wish to stand for politics and somebody who's been MP or campaigning or in election processes as a candidate for the past 15 years is that they're able to buy more t-shirts than you are. So how do we build the capacity of young people? Exactly. It's very, very important.
I'm going to hold you on that because this is something that we'd love to talk about on as we go on the 21st generation. But we will need to go quickly on a short commercial break. You're watching 21st Generation here in studio. A young, powerful, vibrant young woman all the way from Botswana, Gogontlejang Phaladi, talking more about the work she's doing, inspiring young leaders from Malawi. But we'll get to hear more about her journey and the work she's doing straight after this break. Welcome back to the 21st Generation, where youth issues matter the most, with your host, Dekala. So, back from the commercial break on a hot discussion with a very vibrant, dynamic young woman, Miss Gogontlejang Phaladi, all the way from Botswana, here in studio on 21st Generation. It's been so exciting. We've been hearing more about the work she's doing. So earlier on, I don't know if you watched the news a few weeks ago, we had the Partnership of Maternal, Newborn and Child Health, PMNCH. That was here last week, and that got the attention of Your Excellency, Honorable Peter Mutharika, our president, at this meeting. And then we got to hear more from Gogontlejang, also known as Gigi, about what they're doing within the partnership, within PMNCH, and also bringing out the voices and the needs of young people within the partnership. So it's been great hearing more about that, and we're so impressed to hear, being only 22 and being involved in such a global space. It's really impressive, Gigi. And so, I'm sure the viewers want to know, how did you do it? Being only 22, doing the work you're doing, influencing such high-level spaces internationally, regionally, in-country. Tell us about your journey.
Yes, so I run a community-based NGO in my country. It's called the Gogontlejang Phaladi Pillar of Hope project, and it focuses on human rights advocacy, humanitarian work, as well as civic education. So right around over a decade ago, my country had the dubious distinction of having the highest HIV prevalence in the world. And I remember we're doing a lot of HIV responses. Our country is overwhelmed. The healthcare system was overwhelmed, and we're losing a lot of people to AIDS, meaning that the number of orphans and vulnerable children were a lot. So when I started my organization, it was initially just to a response to help those who are less fortunate and disadvantaged with food, clothing, and any in-kind donations. So that's how I began my organization, and over time that's when we moved into human rights advocacy and civic education from just doing humanitarian work. But also it was just serving as just my way of showing my gratitude to God. When I was much younger, my mom almost lost her life due to a terrible car accident, but she managed to recover. And I come from a Christian family, really strong believers and spiritual and quite religious family. So when growing up, my dad used to tell us that the best way to show gratitude to God is by being of service to those who are in need and less fortunate, because that's you fulfilling your duties to God. So it was mainly those two reasons why I ventured into humanitarian work. And over time, when you're there doing humanitarian work, you're seeing a lot of human rights challenges, because there are always issues coming up as you're doing outreaches in villages and different communities, in prisons. You get exposed to issues such as gender-based violence, which is one of the major social ills in my country. And you just ask yourself, if I leave it to the next person to do something, what is my role as a citizen? What is my role as a human being? Because at the end of the day, we all have a social responsibility. That's true. You don't change the whole world by saving one person, but you change the world for that person, and you motivate others to do the same. And then our collective efforts are what change the whole world. So for me, it was just doing the little that I can within my sphere of influence, within my scope, within my capacity, and hoping that no matter how trivial my gesture may seem, it may go a long way in effecting positive change in society and instilling certain good principles in humanity of wanting to make a world a better place.
Gigi, how old were you when you established the organization?
So the organization, when I started doing charity work, which was mostly in my neighborhood and in my school at that time, I was around 5 years old. And
as young as 5?
Yes, as young. I know it's. I think it was very God driven. Honestly, and it starts with little things where I went to a government primary school, and I think it has changed a lot. But back then, there were things like if you didn't have your books covered, you'd be beaten up every day, and if you had 10 books, you'd get 10 strokes for that, and I felt that was unfair. So I'd take some of my school covers for my books and give them to some of those kids who were evidently impoverished and not able to afford school covers. I mean, if a child comes to school and you can see clearly they haven't had a meal, what more of covering the books, and I felt there should be a way that the government engages with the parents instead of punishing the students. There's so many issues, like
some of these issues, it's not in the control of the child.
It's not. There were times when kids would be sent back home if they're not wearing that proper school uniform, and you can clearly see that this child, it's winter season, it's cold, needed a jacket to keep warm. They don't have the proper school blazer or jacket because they can't afford it, so they put on a red jacket, which is not the school colors, and then they'll be sent back home and they're missing out on school, the same institution that could help them graduate from poverty. So it just included taking some of what was mine and asking for access from my neighbors, relatives, and giving it to those who are less fortunate. But formally recognizing I'm registering my organization was 6 years later, because like we were talking earlier on about how we live in gerontocratic systems, society, but even professionally, where when you're young, you're still not expected to do certain things, so each time we had to register my organization and they had my age there, they would think that we made a mistake, it's not possible, she's too young, she should be watching
at that age you were more
Sesame
or less
Street.
How old?
when the organization was registered, I was going towards 10 years old.
Wow.
And also that was when I was becoming very strong with activism. Like I remember I used to be very vocal at school against things such as sending kids back when development fees, because education is free, you know, but there are always that $2 development fees that you're expected to pay, which is not compulsory,
and
you
not
know.
everyone can afford it.
Yes, not everyone can afford it. And apart from that, the teachers would punish these kids during the free meals that the government gives to students, and say, if you didn't pay development fees for paving the classroom, that means you won't eat. And some of these kids, they look forward to the free meals they get from school because of the backgrounds they come from. So it's very vocal around that. I started to read a lot, and then I realized that corporal punishment is not just to be ushered by any teacher. It's only the school head and deputy. Whereas the schools, the public schools you come from, you know, a teacher will just come give you strokes, you're swollen, you're bleeding, they don't even care, and stuff like that. So that's when my activism started to go very strong. And I remember some of my teachers were not so happy about it, and there was a time I got beaten up at school, and I got so sore. It was a police case on my
just because
butt,
of speaking out
on my butt. Yes,
issues.
it was I can't exactly remember the incident, you know, why the teacher, it wasn't even my class teacher, that the teacher from another classroom, you know, but she'd beaten me up, and I think she was really angry when she did that. So I was swollen and was bleeding on my butt, you know, and so it was a police case. My parents took to the Ministry of Education, and I was very vocal about it in the media, you know, and because I was also a UNICEF child ambassador, and the environment became so unfriendly that I had to drop out just a year before standard 6. I had to leave school. That's and really you know, I was just telling my parents that I don't know what I'm gonna do, because you can't proceed to secondary school without your primary school leaving examination certificate. But it was just really toxic. It was really bad for me to continue in the same environment, but God made a way for me, and I managed to get a special scholarship to one of the best secondary schools in Southern Africa, and they didn't want my certificate. They just wanted me to pass the entrance exam, and then I was able to do that. So I think when you do this kind of advocacy and activism work anywhere in the world, not just in Africa, also in America, the Middle East, anywhere, you know, you have to compromise so much, because you're stepping on people's toes.
And you have to be so bold.
You need to be strong. You need to be bold, you know, because you're challenging systems that have been there for a long time. You're challenging leadership, credibility, you're challenging laws, you're challenging the way things have known. So there are a lot of compromises you need to make. You need to also have a lot of self-awareness, affirmation. You need to be very confident and need to know that bullets are going to come at you, how you're going to respond to that. But my dad has always told us that integrity is impossible. I mean, it's very important. So integrity is very important to have. So for me, giving up on my causes, things that resonate with my soul and I deeply believe in, such as issues of equality, equity, and human rights, were things I could never compromise. So I was ready to take the bullets as they come, and I said, you know, God will make a way for me, because He chose me for
you know,
this.
Gigi, as you're saying, you know, even a lot of people watching this, there's always something they want to stand up for. But so many people, we're so ingrained with fear and what will happen. But you never know, just stepping out and speaking out and going out there and wanting to change something the way it's supposed to be can actually bring about a whole revolution in your own country, your own society, in your own school. So I feel like with what you said, it's so many people watching this, is something probably someone watching needed to hear.
That's true, Tikala. And also you reflect on our history. The reason why our countries have independence right now is because some people stood up. And it's only those people who are willing to go all the way to say, you know what, we don't want colonies anymore. We need self-actualization, that we're here. There have been many attempts on those who withdrew when the tide got really, really tough, you know. The reason why right now women have almost equal rights almost everywhere in the world, women have the right to vote, is because of movements like the suffrage movement. There were women who said, said, you know what, no, we want equal rights. The reason why
Yes.
there's racial equality to a greater extent is
Yeah.
because of people like Rosa Parks who say, no, I'm not going to stand for a white person right now. So revolutionaries effecting change, transformation, paradigm shifts, challenges status quo happen because of people willing to sacrifice their personal comfort for that movement. And I think we need more
need
of
that.
those, especially young
And
people.
the ones that are there need to work together a lot
work
more. And
together,
it's what you were
exactly.
sharing earlier on. So Gigi, with all this and with all this passion, all this zeal and boldness and taking risks and wanting to bring so much social change in your country, internationally, what else are you doing? We talked about PMNCH.
Yeah.
You've got your organization. What else are you doing?
I also am quite an entrepreneur. I have a farm. I love farming, and I do it quite part-time, and maybe I'll gradually move into doing it full-time. And for me, it's just basically showing that Africa, we have so much potential that is not being harnessed. Our countries, many of the strongest economies, including my own country, is reliant on minerals. So what happens when minerals are no more? It's time for us to start thinking of economic diversification, and agriculture is our best bet. So I'm a farmer, but I also build the capacity of farmers around my community on how to move towards food security, moving from subsistence to commercial farming. So I host a lot of workshops and seminars for them, and it was also capacity building for myself as an individual.
You're only 22 and doing such high impact work.
Exactly.
Young leader, entrepreneur. This is just incredible. Really.
Yes, and then the other thing I do is that I have a company that is registered. It's called Swahipa Pty Ltd, and its brand is Innovating for Change. So we basically focus on bringing different social entrepreneurs together and innovating for change and development. So the whole purpose of my company is that we want to bring new innovations, whether they're tech-based or they could be social inventions or indigenous inventions that are coming from our African traditional practices, but they make work much easier from the way it has been done. So it's newly launched, and I'm hoping that in the year 2018 we could work on bidding projects in different countries. We'd love to work with Malawi.
I was just about to say, I hope you're going to be working with Malawi. I'm sure the young people watching saying that we need to work with this young woman, only 22. She's got the farm, she's got the company, entrepreneur, young leader. So much that we can just learn from you. And with what you're sharing, these are some of the things in Malawi we're trying to do. And we recently, you are number 12. We recently started this big campaign called our 100 million kwacha Youth Development Fund. We're trying to reach different citizens, different people to literally come together, to put a fund together to empower other young people who want to do amazing things like what you're doing. Start a company, start a farm, support those who have a farm to upscale as well. So you're number 12 out of our 1 million people we need to reach. So thank you for being part of this journey.
Yeah, I think that's really great. 12 is a very lucky number. 12 is the month I was born in, so I believe it's a very blessed number. But I think also it's really great the initiative we're doing, because I think one of the things that we have in Africa, we have a lot of people who are very good at identifying problems. We spend a lot of time identifying problems, and I always say there's no genius in discussing problems. The genius is coming with solutions. So I'm happy that with your initiative, you are really pushing for social responsibility. What am I doing? You're challenging people that change begins with you. So I really believe you will reach that 1 million and even exceed your expectations.
I mean, with a population of about 17 million, why don't we go beyond that? And hopefully each citizen can really stand up and take that responsibility, as you said earlier on.
Exactly. And there's something I really like about that. That's why I hope you really expand it, and it's something that our president started. And it's called the President's Housing Appeal, and it started with people pledging to build houses for the less fortunate and disadvantaged in my country. And so far, hundreds of thousands of houses have been built. But this is the interesting thing. The pledges are not just about you building a full house, because that may be very expensive. You can pledge a bag of cement, you can pledge a spade, you can pledge 100 kwacha. And I think that's very important, because many of us want to do something for others or help or do something different, but we always feel we don't have enough. And with your campaign, you're saying it's not about having a million or being a millionaire to effect change. Your change in your pocket as you're walking out of ShopRite is sufficient, and it contributes to a bigger picture of helping others.
And if the more people come together and give the little they have, we have something big to support everyone else in the country.
So that's great.
We love your support in this. But so sadly, we have come to the end of this episode, but I'm sure I would have loved to know more from Gigi. It has been so empowering, so enriching, so inspiring, and I'm sure the viewers themselves want to know what you have to say to them. And sure, go ahead, have your moment, speak to the viewers.
Great, thank you. I think what I can say is that Africa's got many challenges, and I think the biggest challenge that we have in Africa is governance deficits, and it trickles down to having so many deficits in other sectors. But also Africa is rich, with our population, great brilliant minds, great human resource and capital, lots of land, minerals, all of these. And in as much as we have so many challenges that may deter or demoralize us from wanting to do better for our countries, we should always remember that in the face of all odds, those who love their own countries will find a way to develop them. So look around you. Whether you're not happy because of corruption, health, education, human rights, any issue about it, look at yourself in the mirror and say, what can the man in the mirror do? You cannot change it overnight, and you may not necessarily reach ultimate power position for you to effect direct laws and policies that may effect change. But within your community, your family, your society, what can you do to start building those steps towards the transformation that Africa needs? Because we say that a lot of people want to change the world, but very few people want to change themselves. Ask yourself, are you adding value towards making your country a better place? Or are you the kind of person who's always complaining about what is not right, what is not happening, these bad leaders and everything? What is your influence? You're a citizen, you're a voter, you're a taxpayer. What can be your role in effecting the kind of change and transformation that your country needs today, and start acting on that? Thank you.
As she said it, what can you do? Look around you, and what can you do? It's all in you. And all the people watching, I feel like she has challenged each and every one of you to go out there and do something. You have the potential, you have the capability, the resources are all around you. It's time to stand up and take action to change Malawi the way we all envision it to be. 21st generation, here you heard it all, where youth issues matter the most, with your host, Dekala Idaye. See you next time.
I want to say something. Can I just say? Also, my stay in the warm heart of Africa has been so great. So, zikomo pambire.
Zikomo Gigi. And it's been great to have you in Malawi.